Welcome to MojoPlays. Today, we're looking at why the Xbox One controller cost $100 million to develop, because you can't put a price on perfection. Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. At first glance, you'd be forgiven for thinking that there aren't a whole lot of differences between the Xbox One controller and the Xbox 360 controller, but some sources have confessed that it actually cost over $100 million to create in research and development. While the controller seems to have almost no big new additions you can pinpoint by just looking at it, unlike the PlayStation 4's big light bar and new touchpad, it's easy to wonder just what possessed Microsoft to invest so much cash.
We've also added IR LEDs inside the front plate, and what that does for the device is essentially the system knows, because of Connect, the camera, it sees the LEDs and it knows the controller.
Well, a lot of it comes down to them trying a huge range of options for controller improvements and not knowing which, if any, were necessary or even wanted. The Xbox 360 controller was, and by many accounts still is, the best controller in gaming, even surpassing the beloved GameCube controller. Where 6th generation consoles were concerned though, almost no one would say they preferred the PS3 controller with its gimmicky 6-axis or the often unresponsive Wiimotes to the gold standard 360 handset. Microsoft didn't initially want to change anything at all, and any suggestions to do so were met with resistance.
This sits in the hand better, right? There's some changes here that then give you a better range of motion, right? Which is going to improve your gameplay.
But a lot of that $100 million lump sum was spent entertaining ideas that didn't come to fruition. Microsoft wanted to innovate and do something unexpected rather than just release the exact same 360 controller alongside the Xbox One. Though, few people would have complained about this. One of the strangest ideas that had a working prototype was a smell-o-vision controller. The controller would have cartridges, or slugs, that would be installed to produce certain smells at certain times, according to what you're experiencing on screen.
And it's like the icing on the cake, because you take something that's one of a kind and then you make it just that much more personal with the message.
The example given by Microsoft was the smell of flora if you're exploring a jungle, for instance. While this would have been cool for some games, there are often times that we don't want to smell what we're seeing. I mean, do you really want to be bombarded with the smell of gasoline when you're trying to play Forza? There was also an idea to install a built-in projector to the controller to add an additional display, but this seemed like it would distract players too much, and the core players they asked weren't big fans of it. The other major worry was that they were too big of a drain on battery life, which was a top priority. So, Microsoft decided to ditch all these radical overhauls and take a different approach.
Every change was validated by core gamers. We want to make sure that the core guys love it.
It was decided that streamlining the existing 360 controller was the best route to take, so developer attention became focused almost entirely on ergonomics, which was where most of the money was spent. Many different prototypes with minimal tweaks were built after the fancy gadgets were ditched, with 360 innards placed inside the new Xbox One shells, so the testers were able to play games. The prototypes varied in size by a degree of 1mm up to a difference of 8mm, and around 500 people were brought on as testers. Men, women, and children were all used as focus groups, significant because they wanted a controller that would fit snugly in a variety of hand sizes from a range of demographics. They talked to casual gamers from the surrounding area, hardcore or even professional gamers with very high Xbox Live scores, and actual game developers who worked on Microsoft exclusive titles like Forza and Halo. The result was the sleeker, smoother, more dynamic Xbox One controller we've been using since 2013. Microsoft fixed many of the issues the 360 controller had, such as the shoulder triggers being quite narrow or the grips on the analog sticks wearing away too quickly. They also drastically improved the D-pad to make it more responsive for fighting game players and others who need a level of precision an analog stick just can't handle. The shoulder triggers were made bigger and fit more with the shape of the controller, which is one of the most notable changes you'd pick up on straight away.
The triggers have an exciting new feature we call impulse triggers. They're rumble motors that exist inside of the trigger itself.
They also worked hard to make the letters on the face buttons pop more than they had on the 360, with a black background and colored letters, rather than a colored background and slightly paler still-colored letters. Haptic rumbles were added, making vibrations move across and around the controller instead of the standard rumble you'll find in the PlayStation controller. Finally, the awkward battery pack from the wireless 360 controller was flattened and better integrated, making the device ultimately much easier to hold.
I really like the way it's coming across the Nexus here, the Xbox logo. That's a sweet detail.
It does make you wonder what the next Xbox controller will look like, the one set to debut alongside Project Scarlet in 2020. it's hard to imagine they'll be able to streamline it much more. Perhaps they'll introduce multiple controllers in an array of different sizes so that everybody can find their perfect fit? Maybe they'll just bring back the Xbox 360 controller in all its glory? Microsoft could continue their support of customizability, offering players more options to make their controllers unique without having to go through third parties. Or maybe those weird and wonderful special features, smell slugs and holograms, will find their way into the next iteration. After years of waiting, Smell-O-Vision could finally be a reality.
Now you can't do this at home, but we have a special one here in the studio where you can look at that.
So, Microsoft invested a huge sum of money in putting player comfort first, and it really shows in the ergonomic feel of the Xbox One controller.
I mean, this was designed for gamers by gamers.
Check out these other great clips from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.